The Summary Bible. Part 4. 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra and Nehemiah. In this video, we will explore an abridged version of the Holy Bible to better understand its importance and its central message. Book of 1 Chronicles. The Book of 1 Chronicles is one of the historical books of the Old Testament of the Bible. It was written by the priest Ezra and covers the period of Israel's history from creation to the reign of David. The book begins with a genealogy of Israel's ancestors, including Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their sons. Next, the history of the tribe of Judah is detailed, including the lives of its kings and the conquest of Canaan. The book then presents a detailed description of David's reign, from his appointment as king of Judah to his crowning as king of all Israel. The battles David fought against the Philistines and other enemies of Israel are described, as well as his construction of the temple in Jerusalem. In addition, 1 Chronicles also includes a detailed description of the organization of the cult in the temple and the religious life of the time. The different ministries of the priests and Levites are described, as well as the different types of offerings and sacrifices that were offered. An interesting aspect of 1 Chronicles is the importance given to music and singing in the worship of God. Groups of musicians and singers who played and sang in the temple are described, and it is said that music and singing were an important form of worship to God. In general, 1 Chronicles is a valuable book to understand the history of Israel and the religious life of the time. Although it focuses on the tribe of Judah and the reign of David, it provides a general picture of the time and a deep insight into the culture and religious life of the ancient Israelites. In short, 1 Chronicles is an important book for understanding Israel's history and religious life at the time, and provides valuable insight into culture and worship in ancient Israel. It is a must-read for those interested in the Bible and the ancient history of Israel. Book of 2 Chronicles. The Book of 2 Chronicles is a part of the Christian Bible and Jewish that is part of the Old Testament. This book is a continuation of the Book of 1 Chronicles and covers the period of Israel's history from the death of King David to the Babylonian exile. 2 Chronicles presents a detailed overview of the kings of Judah and their reigns, including their achievements and failures in the administration of the country and in promoting the worship of God. The book focuses on the importance of following God's commandments and maintaining a correct relationship with Him. The first king described in 2 Chronicles is King Solomon, son of David, who built the temple in Jerusalem and established his kingdom as an economic and military power. However, after Solomon's death, the kingdom of Israel split into two, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Throughout the centuries, many of Judah's kings were weak, allowing idolatry and oppression, which led to divine disapproval and conquest by neighboring nations. However, some of the kings of Judah, like Asa and Jehoshaphat, humbly sought God and led their people in religious reform and in victory over their enemies. The book of 2 Chronicles also includes important events in the history of Israel, such as the construction of the Second Temple and the Persian invasion of the kingdom. Finally, the book describes the exile of the Jews to Babylon and their subsequent return to their homeland. In summary, 2 Chronicles is a valuable book to understand the history of Israel and the importance of following God's commandments and maintaining a correct relationship with Him. The book shows how faithfulness to God can bring blessings and how idolatry and disobedience can have negative consequences. Furthermore, 2 Chronicles is a reminder that God is present in the history of His people, and that He is the one who controls the course of events. This book is an inspiring source for those seeking to strengthen their faith and their commitment to God. Book of Ezra. The Book of Ezra is one of the historical books of the Old Testament and tells the story of the restoration of the Temple of Jerusalem and the return of the exile of the Jews in Babylon. This book is a continuation of the Book of Chronicles, and is divided into two parts, Ezra from 1 to 6, and Ezra from 7 to 10. The first part of the Book of Ezra describes the return of the Jews to their homeland and the rebuilding of the temple. With the authorization of the Persian king Cyrus, a group of Jews led by Zerubbabel returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple and re-establish worship of the God of Israel. However, they faced opposition from the local inhabitants, and work on the temple was halted. The second part of the book begins with the reign of the Persian king Darius, who authorizes Ezra, a priest and scribe, to lead a second group of Jews back to Jerusalem. With God's help, Ezra manages to resume the reconstruction of the temple and restore worship and observance of God's law in the Jewish community. Also, it describes how Ezra taught the law to the people and how they strove to keep it. Ezra is an important book because it shows how God fulfilled his promise to restore his people to his land and to protect their worship and his culture. It also shows how God uses righteous and faithful leaders like Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah to guide his people and restore their religion and culture. In addition, the book of Ezra is a reminder of the importance of God's law and the need to comply with it to live a full life and pleasing to God. He teaches the importance of prayer and dependence on God in times of adversity, and shows how God answers the prayers of his children. In short, the book of Ezra is an inspiring story of the restoration of the faith and culture of a people through the guidance of God and the direction of righteous leaders. It is a testimony to God's faithfulness and power, and a reminder of the importance of living according to his law and depending on him in all circumstances. Book of Nehemiah. The Book of Nehemiah is one of the 39 books of the Old Testament of the Bible. It is found in the section of historical books, and is an account of the restoration of the walls of Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity. Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the Persian king Artaxerxes, and learned that the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, and the people lived in very difficult conditions. Moved by this news, Nehemiah prayed and asked the king for permission to go to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls of the city. The king agreed, and Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem with a group of men and materials to begin the rebuilding. However, he encountered many difficulties and opposition from the neighbors and the local authorities. Despite these obstacles, Nehemiah persevered, motivating his people to keep working. With God's help, the walls of Jerusalem were restored in a short period of time. In addition to rebuilding the walls, the book of Nehemiah also recounts how Nehemiah reorganized the religious and political life of the city. He initiated a religious reform, instilling the law of God and the importance of following it. He also established a just social organization in which the leaders were accountable to God and the people. The book of Nehemiah is a lesson on the importance of faith and determination in achieving our goals. It is also an example of how God can help us overcome obstacles and achieve success if we trust Him and work hard. In summary, the book of Nehemiah is an inspiring account of the restoration of a city and a people through faith and hard work. It is a reminder that God is with us in our struggles, and He gives us the strength and wisdom to overcome obstacles and achieve the seemingly impossible.